There's only one candidate, and you know who that candidate is, who's going to get the job done.
We must restore this country to greatness.
We must choose greatness over grievance.
Our best days are yet to come.
Donald Trump is running to stay out of prison. And if we elect, I know, listen, I know the truth. The truth is hard.
Those boos are coming from Iowa Republicans at the party's annual Lincoln Day dinner. They clearly didn't want to hear any criticism of Donald Trump. Now to the roundtable, former DNC chair Donna Brazile, former Trump Justice Department spokesperson Sarah Isgur, Politico's senior political columnist Jonathan Martin, and welcome our newest ABC News contributor, Asma Khalid, also a NPR White House correspondent. Thank you all for being here. So, Jay Martin, it's like there's no discernible reaction from Republicans to this pretty explosive new indictment from Jack Smith.
Well, I thought the reaction in Iowa to Will Hurd's critique goes to the heart of the non-Trump candidate's challenge in trying to confront Trump. You can't leverage multiple federal indictments against your opponent because your voters are taking the side of your frontrunner against the Justice Department. That puts you in a pretty darn tough spot when you're trying to beat somebody who has been indicted and there's pretty damning evidence and you can't use that as a political weapon. Boy, what do you do as a trailing candidate? Well, you try to work around it, but it's tough to work around it when it's all the press obviously is covering. It's all Trump wants to talk about. And so where are you left? We're halfway done with this year now, and the story of the primary has been Trump, Trump, Trump. It's hard for any of these guys to get oxygen at all. You heard the governor of New Hampshire in that piece say, look, eventually at the end of the year, the field's going to narrow, our voters will come to their senses. There's no evidence of that happening yet.
Yeah, and I mean, look at the 538 polling average. Let's bring up this graphic. This is pretty dramatic. This is an average of all the, the major polls. And you have Trump with 52.4%. Nobody else is even close. The real story, besides Trump's strength and growing stronger, is DeSantis's fall. Asma.
That's right. I mean, and look, that's a 30-plus point margin that Trump has over any of his other opponents. I am highly skeptical if anybody saying really that there's a lot of potential for some other candidates, including DeSantis, right? Because you look at historical evidence of previous cycles. The closest comparison anybody gives is McCain. But what folks forget is that Trump has the power of incumbency in a way that John McCain didn't have in 2008, right? So this is not a John McCain, Ron DeSantis.
Yeah, McCain came back from the dead in 2008.
Yep.
Now we have DeSantis laying off a third of his staff.
Yeah.
DeSantis, the guy who is asleep at the switch. I mean, are we surprised that DeSantis cannot capture the imagination of the Republican base at a time when America is still trying to figure out how to heal itself from its past? DeSantis is willing to go out there and essentially say, people benefited from slavery. Really? Who the hell has he been talking to? When Tim Scott is one of his opponents, when you see members of Congress, the 5 black conservatives saying, stop, stop, stop. So I'm not surprised Mr. DeSantis is having a problem catching fire. I had to say that because I'm a descendant of slaves. We did not benefit from slavery. And if Mr. DeSantis cannot wake up and figure out that he needs another message, other than attacking people of color, gay people, trans people, then he is going to continue to follow the polls.
DeSantis has been stuck defending these new Florida education standards that include this line about talking about the skills that slaves earned under slavery. Let's take a look.
No skills.
Let's take a look at what Tim Scott had to say about it.
There's no silver lining in freedom, in slavery. What slavery was really about separating families, about mutilating humans, and even raping their wives. It was just devastating.
Now, Sarah, here's the thing. So, first of all, to have a candidate have to come out and remind people that slavery is bad
Hot take.
is something else. But DeSantis' reaction to this has been to attack those black Republicans and to accuse them of siding with Kamala Harris and the woke Democrats.
Look, the substance of the attack has some real problems, right? The national AP standards had nearly the identical language. This has been a political attack. The problem for the DeSantis team has been that once again, he's getting mired down in this fight instead of the actual numbers that matter here. You know, set aside the poll numbers or any of these other data points that people are looking at. There's one number that I'm focused on from now until Iowa, and that's Republican primary voters. Who do you think is best or most likely to beat Joe Biden in a general election? As long as Donald Trump is winning that number, nothing else matters. And when I ask these campaigns, you know, what are you going to do to change that number? Because it doesn't matter about the substance. It doesn't matter about the indictments. If they think Donald Trump is most likely to beat Joe Biden, that's the candidate. I mean, and they're not able to turn that number around if you're fighting over the AP standards in Florida and Ron DeSantis having to say, well, I didn't know about it, but also it's an attack from Kamala Harris. Like, that is not the line of, doesn't matter. General election, Donald Trump can't win.
Well, I think this is hard for the pre-Trump GOP to swallow. I had a column this week talking about some of these donor events that take place this summer, and you know, Aspen and Bohemian Grove. We're really sort of
real
tough assignments, tough assignments over the summer. But you have these people in the Republican Party, the kind of donor class, and what I would call the pre-Trump leaders, the Paul Ryans, Jeb Bushes, and they're pining for anybody else besides Trump. What I think is hard for them to swallow, John, is that A, the party has changed, and B, their problem isn't Trump, it's their own voters. Their voters like Trump and Trumpism. And this gap between the old guard and where the party is today seems to get wider and wider every year, and they can't come to terms with that. The issue isn't Trump, it's the voters. And the reason we know that is because the rest of this field, A, can't attack Trump for his criminal liability, okay? And B, it's really hard for them to get any traction on electability because their voters think a would-be felon is their best nominee in the general election. When the voters think that, it's hard to get through.
I think the challenge is, and Sarah, what I was hearing from you is it's wild to me to hear that so many sort of Republican-based voters think that Trump is the best opponent to take on Biden, because when you look at some of these indictments, the felony charges, and independent voters, that's where this becomes a real liability,
the fact that
right?
he lost in 2020.
Yes, like that is a real liability.
They don't think he did lose, though, is the problem.
Right.
They don't think he lost.
And so I think there is this disconnect, right? Like, we had our poll recently, the NPR PBS poll, and the number of overall voters who feel that Donald Trump has done nothing wrong dipped, meaning there are more folks in the broad pool of voters. But that doesn't jive at all with where the Republican base is, and that becomes a problem as you
as long as his contenders, those who are seeking to become the nominee, are not willing to take him on and to address the other big elephant. The Republicans are no longer talking about the American people. We're talking about one individual in this country, at 330 million people. We're not talking about what the Republicans will do different on climate, what they will do different on the economy, what they will do different on any issue, because all we know is Donald Trump is not running to make America great again. He's running to stay out of prison.
And yet, Donna, the polls showed that some polls show that he can beat Joe Biden. And even the polls that have Biden in the lead, it's in the margin of error.
But that's because we're a very divided country, and it's going to be a close election. It's going to come down to some of my favorite states in America. But at the end of the day, I still believe that he is a liability. Trump is a liability.
Donald Trump is more popular among Republicans than Joe Biden is among Democrats, and it's not close. Ask them about the economy. Ask them about foreign policy. Donald Trump beats Joe Biden on all of these measures.
Okay, so we had let's talk about Biden. We had the Hunter Biden plea agreement basically put on hold at the very least. Were you surprised by that?
Oh, I was shocked that we now have another month, basically, of this continuing. But right from the beginning, we knew that there was a problem. You had the Hunter Biden team come out as soon as the indictment was announced and say, this ends
over.
The investigation. And then the guy running the investigation comes out and is like, no, it's not. And then none of that was solved for a month. Now, in the hearing itself, we learned a lot about that plea deal, didn't we? There was a real disagreement over whether it was going to cover everything Hunter Biden had ever did before now or not. But in the end, what the judge actually sent them home to do their homework on was something totally different. It was about whether the judge herself is going to decide whether Hunter Biden had violated his pretrial diversion agreement. Totally unheard of, because they're afraid that a Donald Trump Department of Justice will fabricate a reason to revisit this pretrial diversion.
You know, the Donald Trump Justice Department started this investigation. A Republican U.S. attorney is leading this investigation. So the notion that the Republicans have not had a bite at this apple is bull.
So we heard from the press secretary at the White House rule out a pardon for Hunter Biden, but I haven't heard Joe Biden say that. You know Joe Biden better than any of us.
Karine Jean-Pierre
would he pardon his son?
Let me tell you something. The man I know, the guy who goes to church every week, if Karine, the press secretary, came out and said, no pardon, that's off the table, then it's off the table.
Because there's nothing he cares about more than his son.
He loves his family, all of his family, but he also loved justice and truth. And he understands that Hunter must face this music. He will stand by his son because he loves his son, but he understands what's at stake here.
And Osmond, meanwhile, Kevin McCarthy coming out, and I mean, it's interesting. He seemed to kind of walk it back. At the beginning of the week, he said, we're going towards an impeachment inquiry. And now he seems to be saying, well, maybe if nothing else works out. What is going on?
Well, I would say look at the fact that you have 18 House Republicans who represent districts that Biden won in 2020. They don't want to be voting on impeachment as you head into a re-election cycle. They'd much rather be talking about issues around, say, the economy, which some Republicans think is a real liability still for this White House. I would say it's just the fact that McCarthy seems to be constantly tugged between the Republican base of his party that wants to pull on culture war issues and would love to go after Biden on impeachment, and some of the, I think, real practical folks within his party who realize that this is not a winning proposition.
Who's driving that bus?
He's tugged between his speakership depends on keeping the far right happy because any day now they could overthrow his speakership. The irony, John, is that his future as speaker after the year 2024 depends on the people that don't want impeachment because they're the ones facing those tough races. And so he is torn. Look, I think the impeachment issue is puzzling for a lot of reasons, but perhaps most of all, because what you mentioned, Sarah, which is Biden's numbers are not great as is. And I really think after Labor Day, when I'm sure there's going to be a wave of polling, if it's clear that Biden is not getting any credit for the economic improvement, which we've seen across the board, I think Democrats are going to have another conversation about the future. Because if it's clear he's not getting credit for the economy at all, then it's obvious that voters are separating out that issue. And they've made a judgment on Biden himself, and it's impervious to the economy.
First of all, Kevin McCarthy cannot keep his clown show together. They don't want to take on the tough issues of making sure that we can get the appropriations bill through so that the government will not face a shutdown.
Was Donna saying this for the first impeachment of Donald Trump? Just curious.
All right.
But let me just say this about Mr. Biden's numbers. They will improve. And you know why? Because he's going to bring the family home. It's Democrats that must come home.
We are out of time.
October, November.
Thank you very much.